Hey everybody, and welcome to Sweat the Small Stuff. This is part 2 of a continuing series in honor of the MusingsCon 2015, where we're going to Vegas.
2 weeks!
2 weeks.
12
yes.
days. 12 days. Like,
Yes,
not that I'm not excited or anything.
It's a lovely Saturday.
I know! It's Saturday, and we're in my backyard.
Yes, in the backyard. Yes, we're doing it at his place this time.
It's not at night.
Yeah.
I've never podcast during the day.
Yeah.
I did it at Will's, but it's usually the afternoon. Like, it's Saturday morning.
How to deal with that. I don't know how to deal with that. So, today we're going to be working over Blackjack. Last time we did craps, which is a nice dice game, and if you doing cards this time. So, this brings us, if you watch the last one, you're watching this one onto this one, we'll move it on, we're going on to Blackjack. Now, this is a game where, with good play, the house edge for a bet is the lowest for a straight bet. If you remember what we did before with craps, that actually had fair odds, which is indeed the best bet in the casino.
Yes.
But you have to make a bet first in order to get the fair odds. So it's a bet on a bet.
First and a bet on a bet.
A bet on a bet.
Yeah.
And with that, you can get the house edge down very, very low, even below that of Blackjack.
Very true.
But for Blackjack, with correct play, for a straight bet that you're just doing a bet, it will have the lowest edge on that. Now, Blackjack is played against the dealer. You're not playing against anybody else on the table there. So each player, for those of you who don't know how to play Blackjack, we're going to explain it. Each player, including the dealer, is dealt 2 cards with the option of taking more.
Yes.
Suits are not important when it comes to Blackjack, though some casinos make, hey, you just got Blackjack out of diamonds, where you had, a diamond ace and a diamond jack, and they give you something extra for that. But that's just a casino promotion thing. It's not the actual game of Blackjack. So the suits are important, and the cards are numbered 2 through 10, and those score the face value of the card. So if you get a 2, it's worth 2 points. If you have an 8, it's worth 8 points, etc. Face cards also score 10 points. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot more cards that are worth 10 in the deck than you would normally expect.
Yes.
And then the aces score either 1 point or 11 points, depending upon what you want to do with your cards. So the goal is to get as close to the total of 21, which is why sometimes Blackjack is called 21, without going over.
Like Price is Right.
Price is Right, exactly. There.
Yeah.
So, and you have to have a higher score than the dealer. So if you have an 18, which is pretty close, and the dealer has a 19, well, sorry, the dealer beats you. But if it's the other way around, you beat the dealer, and neither of you has gone over 21, and you're good to go. So, if the 2 cards you are dealt to you are an ace, and any of the cards that are worth 10, you've got Blackjack. And because you've got a natural 21 off your first 2 cards, because that ace is worth, you're going to be counting it as worth 11, not 1, and you're going to count the 10 as a 10, and 10 and 11 is 21. Now, the player's cards, in general, are dealt face up. When you're at the common table games, they're dealt face up. You can find some tables where the cards are all dealt face down, and
single deck blackjack. Single deck and double deck blackjack, and we'll get into probably, I'm assuming, a different variation, but single deck and double deck blackjack will be dealt to you face down.
And so you get to look at the cards yourself and hide them. And to some it does have a little effect, but for general odds, it doesn't have that much effect on how you ought to play. It's mostly because at that point, it's more difficult to count cards. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll get to that in a moment. Now, in general, but if you're at the great big table game, the great big table, they have the 6-deck shoe and the automatic reshuffler and all that. You're going to be getting your cards face up. Except for the dealer. The dealer is dealt 1 card face up and 1 card face down. And that one that's called the face down card, it's called the hole.
Yes.
So it's just your hole card. If the dealer's face card is either an ace or a 10 when they go around, so they've dealt everybody their first card, and the dealer gets their first card, and then they deal everybody's second card, and the dealer gets their second card. If that face up card is either an ace or a 10, the dealer's going to check to see very surreptitiously whether or not they have blackjack. Before, I mean, it used to be that the dealer had to actually lift up the corner of the card and take a look at it, but now they have a little mirror thing. They just slide the corner of the card into this little recess in the table that has a tiny little mirror that only the dealer can see the results of, and when they do that, they can determine what the actual card is, and they can deal with that. So,
and why do they do that?
And the reason why they do that is, if that happens, the dealer has blackjack, and everybody loses.
And everybody gets angry.
Everybody gets angry at that point. Except for those people who were also dealt blackjack.
Yes.
Because if you were dealt blackjack, you automatically win unless the dealer was also dealt blackjack. And if both of you were dealt blackjack, you tie, and that's known as a push.
Yes.
So, we got that. Now, if the dealer is showing an ace but not a card worth 10... the dealer will offer the players insurance. And the reason why that is that if you win blackjack, you win 3-2. So you put down a bet, and you win 1.5 times your bet.
Is what
you're supposed to. Well, that's for a standard table like this. Are things? Have you been playing at tables that don't offer that?
A lot of Vegas is now playing 6-5. Downtown is still doing 3-2.
Okay.
Most of the strip casinos are doing 6-5, which is bullshit.
It is, yeah. Okay.
So, excuse me, bullshit.
So, you're supposed to be getting 3-2 off of that bet. At least that's the classic way. Because, technically, the casino can offer you whatever the hell odds they want, and that's what they're dealing with. But the classic way was actually it's 3-2. But, if the dealer is showing an ace... Well, actually what happens is that the dealer showing you an ace, they will offer you insurance, and they will determine whether or not you want to take the insurance. And if they do, after the request for insurance, they will then indicate whether or not they have blackjack or not, sort of thing. But the point is that insurance pays 2-1, and you can bet up to half of your original bet. And the little itty bitty doggy's going inside. We love Bandit. So, let me just take a look at my notes and deal with that sort of thing. So, the dealer showing an ace, they'll offer you insurance 2-1. If the dealer has blackjack, you win your insurance bet, but you lose your original bet.
Yes.
So, is the way that works. Thus, that's why if you're bet the maximum 1/2 of your original bet, and it's paying 2-1. You haven't lost anything. You get twice your money back for that one, and we're to have a little camera. Maybe
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the camera, and I can't see myself because it's backlit there.
Backlit there.
So those of you who, if Brian puts any of the original me in there, it's very different.
Voice is going to be in there. We never actually. It says, "Hello, this is Brian Evans. That's Dan over there."
we just started
that type blackjack, and so anyway.
So the small stuff, awesome.
Yes. Hey. So, but the point is that since the insurance bet pays at 2-1, and you are betting up to half of your original bet, so if you bet half your original bet at 2-1, you're going to get twice that amount back. You're going to get your original bet total back as your winnings, and so therefore you wouldn't have lost anything. You're going to lose your original bet, but you're going to get it back off of your insurance bet.
Yes.
So in that essence, insurance gets you out. The problem is insurance is a really crappy bet. You never want to take insurance. Yeah. Don't be breaking my stuff there, Dan.
Sorry guys. Sorry, we're trying to do a nice, informative podcast. So
and not one about how electronics break.
Don't touch Dan.
So if you're dealt blackjack,
your insurance.
So if you're dealt blackjack and the dealer does not have blackjack, you get paid 3-2 immediately because you automatically win, except for if they're playing screw with that. If neither you nor the dealer have blackjack, then the game is on.
Play goes.
Play goes on.
Yes.
The next round of play begins. Starting with the player to the dealer's left, they can request additional cards in an attempt to improve their hand. And that's called a hit.
Yes, dealer's
hit
left.
Me. The player can then request as many or as few cards as they wish until they either say, nope, I don't want any more, or they bust, which is going over 21. So That's an automatic loss, and the player is out, even though the dealer hasn't played yet, because you've gotten over the total that you need to get. If they haven't busted and they're satisfied with the hand, they can then pass to the next player, and that's what's known as standing. Okay? So, now there's some special events that can happen during that play.
Yes, there are.
If you're dealt 2 of the same card, you can do what's known as a split. That is, you split the cards off into their own section, and you put another bet down of the same amount that you had originally bet on that second card. So if you have 2 7s, you can pull them apart, and now essentially you're playing 2 hands. One off your original 7 and one off your other 7. So they immediately give you another card, because 7, who's going to stick around on a 7? And you just sort of keep on going. If the next card that comes around is also a duplicate of the one that you got, you can split it again. Usually, depending upon the table, they might have a limit as to how many times you can split your cards.
And what cards you're allowed to split.
They're right things. But the general, this is because the casinos are getting really picky on what it is that they used to be. It used to be, split as many times as we didn't care what it was that you were splitting on, but they're looking for their edges on that bit. But the point is that if you get 2 of the same card, you can split them. If the new card leads to blackjack, for instance, you split your aces, which you should always do. Split your aces. Always split your aces. And the next card comes up at 10. Congratulations! Blackjack!
3-2.
3-2. Or that sort of things. Otherwise, if it's not immediate blackjack, you just keep on playing each hand individually. You start with the first one, and you play until you either decide, I'm going to stand, or you bust. And then you move to your next one, and you play it until you either decide that you're going to stand, or you bust.
You basically create two hands. And all the rules, normal rules
All the rules apply, exactly. Now, if the other option is to double down, that's where you're looking at your hand, given what you have for those 2 cards, and you can see the dealer's upturned card. You don't know what the whole card is, because they haven't turned that up, but you can see their face-up card. And the idea is that if you are pretty certain that you're going to win this hand, you can double your bet in order to get more money out of that. They will give you 1 more card for that, and that's it. You cannot take any other cards. You cannot split. You cannot do things. They say, I think I'm going to win with 1 more card, and so I'm going to double my bet. You give me the 1 card, and that's it for me. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So once all the players have either busted or stood pat, then the dealer reveals their whole card, and then depending upon what the dealer has, the dealer may keep playing. And there are certain rules that the dealer is allowed to do in order to improve their hand. And these also kind of vary from casino to casino.
There's kind of a standard, but you're right. Like there's a lot of room to play.
There's a little bit. There's basically 4 possibilities. So if the dealer is showing less than 17, and this is true for pretty much every casino out there, then the dealer must hit. Mm-hmm. Even if everybody has stood on a 12 and the dealer was dealt a 14, the dealer has to hit because it's less than 17. So they have to. If the dealer is showing more than 17, then they have to stand. Even again, if it's less than everybody else. So if everybody on the table has an 18 and the dealer is showing 17, then, or I should say, if everyone's showing a 19 and the dealer is showing 18, then the dealer has to stand unless the dealer loses, and everybody wins. If the dealer is showing what is known as a hard 18, and by that means the 17 is made without the use of an ace being scored as 11. That is, an ace and a 6 is a soft 16 because the ace 17 is worth 11 plus 6, and that's 17.
Because that could also be worth 7. That's why we call it
could also yes. Well, but the other reason is that you could put a 10 on that card, on that hand, and have the exact same hand.
Yes.
If you have an ace and a 6, and then for your next card you get a 10, it is now absolutely 17, because if you took it as an 11, you would bust. And who wants to bust? So it's a hard 17 because the ace is being counted for 1. So if the dealer is shown a hard 17, then the dealer has to stand, in general. If the dealer is showing a soft 17, then the dealer is forced to hit some places, whereas other tables, the dealer has to stand, depending upon how it's going around. The typical Vegas table has the dealer hitting on all soft 17s, and only the really high limit tables have it the other way around.
Yes.
So in general, in Vegas, if the dealer's showing 17, they'll hit. Or if their dealer's showing 17, I'm sorry, they will...
They will stand.
Yeah,
unless there's an ace involved.
Yeah, hit on soft, stand on hard.
Yes,
is the standard Vegas table thing, unless you're doing the really high thing. See, this is why I have notes, people, so that I can actually remember what it is that I was supposed to say. And even then, I can't read my own damn notes. So,
and what's worse is it's not like you did the handwriting. And
no,
I can't read my own handwriting.
It's all typed up.
It's typed up. So,
if the dealer has a hand that requires a hit, then it's added and rules apply again. So they were dealt a 6 and they get another card and it's a 6 as well. That's only 12, so they have to hit again. And that's a 3, so that's 15, so they have to hit again. And it's a 10, that's 25, they bust. Yay! So at that point, if the dealer doesn't bust and the dealer gets to a point where the dealer now has to stay, then you take a look at the dealer's hand, you compare it to all the players' hand, and if the player beats the dealer, player wins. Dealer beats the player, dealer wins, and if they're the same, you push.
And the amount of time it took you to explain that,
yeah.
you could play 15 hands of blackjack.
Because
it's a very quick game.
It's a very fast game. Very fast game.
If you haven't played blackjack, like you think, oh my god, it's so complicated. It moves.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the time, you're not really in a soft situation. You're not really in a blackjack situation. You're not really in a split or a double down.
Yeah.
You're just playing, and you get some of these dealers, and it's just, whoa. All right, continue.
Okay. So, what's the best way to play blackjack? So that's the rules. You get 2 cards, you take a look, you might split, you might double down, you're trying to get closer to 21 and beat the dealer. So how the best way to do that? Well, it comes down to counting cards. It really does come down to counting cards.
But you shouldn't count cards.
Yeah. Now, by that, what I mean is the specifics of counting the cards. It's more general than the specifics of counting the cards as they're played. That's my point behind that.
You're not really,
because this is about probability. Remember, the point of this is to understand the probability of how the cards are going to come out, so that you can understand why you should bet the way that you're betting. So that means now there is the concept of counting cards where you are indeed paying attention to the specific cards that have been played so that you can understand what cards are out on the table, what cards are in the discard pile, and what cards are still in the deck that have yet to be played.
Yep.
Because on a weird off chance, suppose that all the aces through 9, ace 2, 3, 4 through 9, have been played, and there's nothing but 10s left in that deck. Well, in that case, all you've got is everyone's going to get a 20, everyone's going to push. There's really no point in playing this thing anymore, but that's because you were counting cards and that sort of thing. But a casino, now here's the thing. Counting cards, it's not illegal.
No, it's a skill.
It is not illegal. The issue is that a casino, like all other businesses, has the right to refuse service to anyone. And if they catch you counting cards, you will be asked very politely with very large men standing next to you.
But firm.
to please leave. Now, that said, it is illegal to use any device to count the cards. If you can just keep it in your head, it is not illegal. If you have a little piece of paper and you're writing everything down, or a little calculator that you're using to deal with that, that's illegal. Now, the reason why is that by counting the cards, you can shift the odds into your favor. Because like I said, if you know what cards are still in the deck, that changes the probability of what hands you are physically capable of getting, and thus you can adjust your bet accordingly. If the deck is very, very poor for what you as the dealer might, or what you as the player might get, decrease your bet or even stop playing, until the deck gets better, and then, or if it's very favorable to you, because the dealer has forced plays that they're made to make. So therefore, you can very often determine whether or not the dealer is going to bust, or at least is likely to bust. And if the dealer's likely to bust, increase your bet because you will win when the dealer busts.
Yes.
If it's very unlikely for the dealer to bust, you want to decrease your bet or possibly stop playing because it's not going to go. And poor Bandit is going to plek.
Everybody's throwing up in my
Everybody's
throwing up.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine. A little thing.
So, and with that, we're back to Blackjack. Because in Vegas, you never see anybody throw up. Never. Now, that's the case for Nevada, for dealing with your counting cards. In Atlantic City, it's not, even then, it's not, okay, they can't even ask you to leave in Atlantic City.
Really?
Yes. Because there's nothing stopping you from using your general statistics knowledge to develop a strategy on what it is to play. It went to court, and the guy said, "You're saying that I can't play blackjack because I'm good at it."
And a judge probably went, "That's a good point."
That's a good point. You're telling me that I'm not allowed to play blackjack in the casino unless I am so bad that I'm going to lose. If I get good at it, you're not going to play anymore? No, that doesn't seem right. And so for Atlantic City, they said, yeah, that sort of thing. Nevada, again, it's that thing of, we reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, and if we catch you counting cards, we'll let you out. So
we don't care if you count cards. We just don't think you should be in our casino anymore.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Go ahead, count.
It has nothing to do with the counting cards.
Count all the cards you want. We just don't want to serve you anymore.
It has nothing to do. Yeah.
We don't like the cut of your jib.
To be fair, the Nevada Gaming Commission is extremely powerful. So,
well, having lived in Las Vegas, where there's no property tax and there was no tax on food, when that was, very rare for a state to do that, and when the rest of the country increased the public telephone cost to a quarter. I know, public telephone, what's that?
What is a public
There
telephone?
were these things with a booth inside, and when Superman wasn't changing his clothes inside one of them, you could make a phone call to someone else if you needed to make a phone call, because these things did not exist yet, and they cost a quarter. Well, in Nevada at the time, it still cost a dime. It was just a dime for that, because Vegas makes a lot of its money through gambling and the military. Most of the state is owned by the military, and what isn't owned by the military is owned by casinos. Yeah. So when you get right down to it, it's national parks, it's military bases, and it's casinos. And so people go there, they spend all of their money there, and we're very, very happy that you are spending your money to float our economy.
And I have no problem with doing that.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy it.
It's fun.
How about you? Anyway,
so where were we? So we're moving on. So Blackjack avails itself of a brute force analysis, kind of what we did with craps, where we just did, okay, here's all the possibilities for the first die, here's all the possibilities for the second die, let's just see how they play. So a 2 comes up only 1 out of 36 times, and a 12 comes up out of 1 out of 36 times, and they converge on the 7. Remember the little diagonal in the chart of this is where all the 7s are. Blackjack also avails itself to a brute force method because there's only so many cards, and you get them in a specific set.
13 cards per suit, and then and then you just do it that way. Yeah.
You can do it that way. The problem is that because there are so many cards, it's a little bit more difficult to just have, here's a nice little chart to figure out. But we're going to give a general process of how to analyze Blackjack, and then you can say, okay, we trust you that you have done the rest of the analysis to show that that's okay. So the first thing is to break down the cards, and since the suits don't matter, you have 4 of each card.
Yes.
Right. But unlike what we did with craps, we can't just look at the first card and the second card, because unlike craps where the dice are independent, what you get for your second card depends upon what you got for your first card. Because
that card is no longer in the deck.
That card is it's no longer in the deck, and you cannot get it twice. You can get a second one of the same rank if you're playing with single deck blackjack, but if I've already got the 4 of diamonds, I can't get the 4 of diamonds again. I can get a 4 of spades, hearts,
so all of a sudden,
clubs.
Instead of 4 out of 52. It's now 3 out of 51.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly. So
now
that's
we're
what I'm saying.
multiplying things together.
So now these cards are dependent upon each other. So for in a fresh deck, 4 in 52 chance of getting an ace on your first card, or about 7.8%. But the act of having the ace in your hand, like we said, so the chances of getting the second being 3 in 51, that's about 5.9%. So the odds of you getting 2 aces in a row for your first 2 cards are 7.8% times 5.9%, which, rounding it off, is 8 times 6, which is about 4.8%. It's a little less than, it's about 4.5% of you getting 2 aces on your first 2 cards.
In fact, interestingly enough, there is a kind of odds thing that I did, and that holds true for any 2 cards. Because what they're saying is on just a basic 2 card, a natural 21, which is natural blackjack, 4.8%.
Yep.
So, regardless, your 2 cards, any 2 cards, it sounds like any 2 cards,
yes.
You've got a 4.8% chance
of getting those 2 specific cards. Now, that's just off a single deck shoe. In order to make counting cards more difficult for the casinos, what they did, and also to help maintain the odds being in the favor of the house, what casinos have done is they started using multiple decks for blackjack. Because you had mentioned this before, single deck, double deck.
Yes.
Double deck just means they're using 2 decks of cards at the same time. But your typical table, they're using 6 decks of cards for the typical table game in Vegas.
Some of them have gone up to 8.
Yeah, and there's an awful lot of cards in that there. With more cards to keep track of, it becomes more difficult to count the cards. Because if you're doing just a single deck, if you're really good at it, you can actually keep track of the specific cards that are in there. When you start dealing with 6 and 8 things, all you can really do to try and keep into your head is to manage, okay, a 10 has been played, a 10 value card has been played, an ace has been played, a non-10 value card has been played. And so because 10 really is kind of the big thing. A, there's so many of them in the deck.
Yes.
And B, they're worth so much that they're valuable and you want to keep track of them. But that's the sort of thing about for doing that. So, suppose you're playing a table that's using a 6-deck shoe, which is kind of typical.
That's standard.
Okay. That means there are 52 times 6 or 312 cards in the shoe, of which 4 times 6 or 24 of them are aces. So the chances of you being dealt an ace on that first card of a fresh shoe is the same as for a single deck, because you've just expanded everything by 4, so you still have your 7.8% chance. But that second card is now you have a 23 out of 311 cards. Because you have 1 8, there were 24 aces, you've taken one of them, there's 23 left. There were 312 cards, and you've taken one of them. There's 311 of total cards. So you have a 23 out of 311, or about a 7.4% chance, which means now your odds of getting a double ace is a little bit better than it was in a single deck. Under the single deck was about 4.5%. Now it's more closer to, it's more about 5%. It's more than 5%.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that helps to deal with it. It maintains a more consistent level of what you're likely to get in the deck for your cards when you have an infinite number of cards in the deck thing. And so therefore the odds as cards get played don't shift around so much, because a single card can change the odds a lot in a single deck. A single card doesn't really change the odds that much because there are so many cards.
Yeah, there's more cards, which each individual card has less of an impact on the whole.
Right. Now, since the dealer has a card that hasn't been shown yet, you're analyzing the game to determine what the dealer's likely to have.
Yes.
You have to guess what the dealer has in order to determine whether or not you should hit or stand given your card. The problem is that blackjack quickly becomes complicated as more cards get played, because every card you take is a card that the dealer cannot have. And so as you start pulling on cards, it changes what it is that you want to do. When your first 2 cards, you should probably do this. And then you get a card, and that changes your odds, and you should probably do something else. And so deal with that. So suppose you're dealt a 9 and a 4. So you got 13. And the dealer is showing a 4. Should you hit?
Nope. But
Oh?
I just know that.
Why?
'Cause it was, so, again, basic blackjack strategy. You don't hit because the dealer's showing a 4 in this case.
Right.
We know that based on dealer rules, where they have to hit if they've got less than a 17. I
Right.
know the dealer's going to have to hit.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And because there are more 10s
Yes.
than anything else in there, you've got, 5 suits of 10s, so you've got 20 10s in a single deck. The odds of him getting a 10 are greater than any other card. Meaning, if he's got a 4 and there's a 10 in his whole card and he's going to pull another 10,
Yep.
there is a good chance he's going to bust. Whereas, I've got a 14. I could pull a 10. There's a chance I'm going to bust.
Yeah.
I'd rather not do that based on the cards that I'm seeing on the table.
Okay. So, let's do this in
Brian's
a more...
gonna tell me
in a more-
mathematically what
let's
is
do it the math way. Let's do it the real way. All right. There are 49 possible cards that the dealer might have in the hole. And the reason was that
Because
we
we
started
showed
with 52.
two.
We started 52. I have 2 of them,
And we know
and the
he's
dealer
got
has
one.
one of
He's
them that
got
we
one.
know of.
Okay.
And there's that 4th card out on there. So there's 49 possible cards that the dealer might have in the hole. 16 of them are valued at 10 because I have a 9 and a 4. And he's got a 4. So no 10s or things. So there's 16 10s, 4 suits, 4 cards, 10 jack, queen, and king are worth 10. So that's the 16 cards. 3 of them are valued at 9 because I have one of the 9s. And 4 of them are valued at 8, and so on down the line. Thus, we can determine what the probability for each possible hand that the dealer has based off of that. So for a total of 15, where the dealer has an ace and a 4, there's 4 ways for that to happen, and so that's a probability of 8.2%. Okay. 14, if the dealer's a 14, which is where they have one of the 10 cards in the 4, there's 16 ways to do that, 32.7%, and so on down the line. 13, where they have a 9 and a 4, there's only 3 ways of doing that because I have one of the
You got one of
9s.
the- exactly.
And so they have a 6.1%. 12, 11, 10, 9, those are all the same at 8.2%. Same as getting the ace. For the 8, where they have a 4 and a 4, well, there's only 2 ways to do that because I have one of the 4s and the
they
D
have
have one of the 4s
4s.
already. And for them to have the third 4, that's only 4.1%, and so on down the line. So the likelihood is that the dealer has less than you. You add up all those things, the dealer probably has less than you. But according to the rules, the dealer must hit because no matter what, total is going to be less than 17. Because even if they have a 10, even if they have 11, if they have an ace and 4 is only worth 15, so they have to hit because it's less than 17. So what are the odds of the next card to the dealer? That's what we're going to be calculating. Well, that depends upon what card the dealer has in the hole. This is where I say it gets complicated because you can't just say, oh, pull the next card out, because it kind of depends upon what they got.
Yeah. Because
Right.
Yeah.
So let's assume that you don't hit. You were just not. You're just going to stay pat, and the dealer has another 4. Suppose the dealer does indeed have an 8 where they have 2 4s. Now we need to go through the possibilities for what the dealer draws next based off of what is still in the deck. Now there are 48 possible cards
Because
that the
now-
dealer can
because-
pull because
yeah.
now we know what all 4 of the cards are. And since the dealer with since a 9 and 3 of the 4s have been played is basically what it is. So suppose the dealer then draws an ace off that 4 and 4. Well, there are 4 ways to do that. Out of the 48 cards that are left, they'll have a 19. That's a probability of 8.3%. For the 18, where they get a 10, that there are 16 ways to do that. There's a 33.3%. There's a 1/3 chance of that. So on down the line, you can take a look at my chart. So we can see that there's about a 48% chance that the dealer is going to have enough to stand beating you, and about a 52% chance that the dealer will need to hit. There's no way that the dealer can bust off of this next card, but there's a little less than 50-50 chance that the dealer is going to beat you at that point. So to truly determine what the odds were, we need to then repeat that for every single possible card that the dealer might draw
Wow.
based off of that. So that's what I'm saying. It gets complicated And I'm not going to go through all of that because the number of permutations that can do easily gets very, very large.
Very quickly,
That's why we have computers. Computers can do that.
Back in the day, though, they used to do this all by hand.
Oh, yeah. Talk about accounting. They had little ledger books, and you would write it down in your little spreadsheets and figure it out and do it that way. Now, because, like I said, because the sheer number of possibilities, I'm not going to go into that. But you can calculate the probability of the hand that you have against the probability that the dealer's hand is either going to beat you or bust by the time that they're done. So, for a single deck, suppose you've got... the rules are, going through all of that, and these are rules for a single deck. They don't really change. They do change a little bit for multi-deck blackjack, but for a single deck, if you have a total of 7 or less, but not including pairs, because pairs allow you to split. So if you just have 7 or less, you hit. Your hand is so poor that relying upon the dealer to bust isn't worth it. You need to improve your hand such that you have to make the dealer bust. If that makes sense. And since you cannot help but improve your hand, you should hit.
I'm curious where you're going to be at the end of this, because I've already, based on how I play and a few things I look at, disagree. So this should be interesting. Because again, it's all about how you feel about the numbers.
Yeah, because the numbers care how you feel about them.
This is what I tell everybody. Numbers don't lie. Then Brian's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah. If you have an 8, 9, 10, or 11, you might or you might not double down. So that's going to be handled in a moment. Okay, because those are hands that you might consider doubling down on. 7 or less, you absolutely it's just you just hit. Your hand is so poor that there's no point in not doing it. Because if it becomes close for the dealer, you want to have as good an edge as you possibly can. But for 8, 9, or 10, or 11, you might or you might not double down. Now, for between 12 and 17, I have a little chart here that's going to get shown on screen, and you're going to want to base it off of that sort of thing.
12, 13, 14, 15, 16?
12 through 17.
So you're including
12
17.
through 17s, yes. So, if the dealer is showing a 5 or a 6, you stand. Because your 12, the dealer's 5 or 6, is so close to 17. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to hit anyway.
Yeah.
And since they're so close to 17, if they hit, they're probably going to bust. Because there are enough higher cards, the 9s, the 10s, even an 8 if they're showing a 5, or even a 7 if they're showing a 5. That puts them to 22, and there's so many of those cards, and that's a bust. And so, therefore, if they're showing a 5 or a 6, you want to stand. Mm-hmm. If they're showing anything else, you hit.
Yes.
You hit, because you need to improve your hand. Now, there's a risk of you possibly going bust. If you're showing a 12 and they deal you a 10, you're going to bust. But the risk of the dealer winning, or the risk of the dealer busting, is better than the risk of your busting on a 12.
I totally agree. And there's actually a strategy, we can talk about this later, there's actually a strategy, it's a bad strategy, that people, I know somebody who I'm very close with who plays this strategy, well, I would rather me beat me than the dealer beat me. So he doesn't bust. This individual tries to not, or the dealer beat me, then I beat me. That's what it is. So he would rather let the dealer keep playing when he should have keep playing. Here's the problem with that, though. They've actually figured it out. It actually adds almost 4% to the house edge if you don't do that. So listen to what Brian said. Sometimes you don't think you should hit because you don't want to bust, but
you have to.
You have to.
You've got you have 12 and the dealer is showing a 9, you still hit, because if the dealer has 19, you are definitely destined to lose. So the only thing for you to do is try to improve your hand and possibly get a 19 and push, or even a 20 or 21 and win. And so if the dealer's going to beat you, do your best to beat the dealer. Mm-hmm. is the idea behind that.
It's the Malcolm Reynolds from Firefly. If someone's trying to kill you, you just go ahead and kill them first.
Exactly.
Like, you try to kill them first or right back. Whatever the quote is. It's that same
Music's of a Geek. Welcome.
There you go!
So, 13, 14, 15, those are all played the same. If the dealer is showing 6 or less, you stay. If the dealer is showing 7 or more, you hit. And it's that same concept. The dealer is probably going to have a hand that they can beat you with, so therefore you hit. But if the dealer looks like they have a hand that they're going to bust on, you stay. So for 13, 14, 15, it's 6 or less, 7 or more is your break line. It's 12 that things get squirrely, because it's hit if they're low, hit if they're high, and stand if they're right in the middle.
Yeah.
Now, for 16, that also gets a little complicated. 16 is the worst hand to have in blackjack, because the dealer, their limit is 17. And so at 16, you are so close. There are now more cards in the deck that are going to bust you than are going to beat you, than you're going to win off of. And yet the dealer, if they pull a 17, yep, I'm staying, I win. So it's right there on that stupid line. So for 16, again, 6 or less, you stand. If the dealer is showing 6 or less, you stand, because the dealer's probably going to bust and your hand is good enough. If the dealer is showing 7, 8, or 9, you hit, because you have to improve your hand. But if the dealer is showing a 10 or an ace, then you stand again.
Or if the casino offers the option to surrender.
Oh, to surrender, yeah. I don't discuss surrender in this game, because surrender throws even more monkey wrenches into it. This is a new thing. Surrendering is where you say, I don't think I'm going to win. I'm out. I want to surrender, and you get half your bet back. So that's the way that surrendering works. 17,
but if there is no surrender, you are 100% right. At that moment, you have to. I agree with you. Yeah. You have to stand.
Right. You have to. It's 10 or ace. You stand. Now, 17 or better, you stand no matter what. Even if it's hard, even if it's soft.
Actually, I don't. The other way. We'll talk about that later.
Yes. If you have a 17 or better for your hand, then no matter what the dealer is showing, you stay.
Absolutely.
You stay. Even if it's hard, even if it's soft. There are people I know that say, well, I have a soft 17. I'm going to try for 21. And the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to weaken your hand.
And I, again, disagree with that. So.
Now, if you're counting cards...
I'm not counting cards.
You apparently are psychically counting cards, because apparently the gods of blackjack are telling you, hit on 17.
If you've got a
you'll
soft,
get a 4.
If you've got a soft
you'll
17.
get a 4 and get your 21, because there's only 16 cards in the deck that'll help you, but more than 40 that are gonna
if
worsen
you have a soft 17, you should hit.
No.
Yes.
No.
Or double.
If they let you double.
If they let you double. If not, you should hit on a soft 17.
Because for the doubling, casinos do put a limit on what you're allowed to double on. Some casinos will let you double on anything. Others say you can only double on 8, 9, 10, or 11. So, because those are the rational ones to double on. Now, this is for any point along the way. Notice that chart is for any point along the way. If you are dealt a 2 and a 5... well, that's a 7. It's 7 or less. You got to hit. And suppose the next card you get is a 5. So that puts you at 12. So then you follow the rules for I have 12, and the dealer is showing this. And suppose the next thing they give you is a 3. So now you're at 15. So you follow the rules for I have a 15. Even though you did it on more than 2 cards... Because the way it works, that's what you need to do.
You're playing off of values, like point values.
Point values. Yeah, now, if you really, really want to get into it, and again, this is where the counting cards comes in there, you can really get into the nitty-gritty to determine the really fine detailing of, okay, well, if I have been given a 5 and a 2 and a 5 and a 3 and that sort of thing, this is what I ought to do. The things will change out there. But this is a nice general strategy that you can keep in your head. And here's a nice, interesting thing for speaking of that. You can bring this chart in with you to the casino and just put it right down there. The casino does not mind you having a set of rules for what it is that you are going to do, because the dealer has a set of rules and everybody knows what it is. You just need to make sure that the dealer understands that this is just a chart that I'm going to use, that I'm showing 14, you're showing a 6, I'm going to hit.
Yep.
That's fine. They don't care about that. So by all means, there's even companies out there that have little cards that you can take with you into the casino that have the charts printed out.
Quote unquote basic strategy
for playing blackjack.
Yeah. And and Brian's right, as long as you just put it on the table and leave it there.
Yeah.
They don't care.
They don't care. They don't care at all. Now, by hand, that means you either don't have any aces in your hand, Or if you do, they are forced to being counted as a 1, such as you have hit previously. That is, suppose you're dealt an ace and a 5. Okay, that's either a 6 or a 16, which means it's soft. So if you then hit, which you should, because it's 16, and you get a jack, it's now forcing the ace to be a 1, and thus you now have a hard 16,
and then you should
thus you should play the hard 16 rules. Now, you might or might not hit depending upon what the dealer is showing off of your 16. If it's less than 6, then you stand. If it's 10 or ace, you stand, and if it's 7, 8, or 9, you hit. So, if you have an 18, 19, or 20, you always stand. Chances of you being able to are just not worth it. Now, so for soft totals, you always hit on 17 or less. So this might actually be, 17 or less. You always hit 17 or less, because you can do nothing but either put yourself back into a situation where you can improve your hand, or just maintain your little
level,
thing.
Yeah.
Always stand at a 19 or better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with that.
If you have a soft 8, this is the interesting thing. If you have a soft 18, and the dealer is showing a 7 or less, you stand. If the dealer is showing an 8 or more, you hit. So this gets really kind of complicated in there. So, with the soft bits, 18 is your cutoff. If you have, for soft hands, 18 is your cutoff to try and figure out what it is that you need to do. 17 or less, you always hit. 19 or more, you always stay. 18, you take a look. Well, has the dealer possibly got an 18? Well, if they do, you hit, and if they don't, you stand, because you're hoping for the dealer to either improve the dealer. Now, next comes splitting. So you've got pairs.
Yep.
You've got a pair of 2s, 3s, etc. What do you need? When do you split, and when do you not split? Dan splits his 10s.
Not always. In fact, only once per trip, usually.
He splits his 10s. Dan splits his 10s,
once per
and he
trip.
does it right in front of me. And
this is the difference. Like, you're all, math, the numbers don't lie, and I mentioned this, and I'm like, yes, I'm an accountant, but sometimes you have a feeling, and you go with it, because you're gambling. Go with that feeling. And even though the number's telling you got to do it just once, or you just got to go. I got a feeling.
Okay. So, if you've got a pair of 2s or a pair of 3s, and the dealer is showing 7 or less, you split. If the dealer is showing 8 or better, you don't, according to this little chart. 4s, 5s, 6s, you never split. Never split your 4s, 5s, and 6s. They are worth better to play as the pair, because especially for an 8. Because an 8 or a 10, if you have pair of 4s, pair of 5s, you might consider doubling down. And they're much better as a pair than split. That's 4, 5, 6. 7, if the dealer's showing 4 or less, you don't split. If they're showing 8 or better, you don't split. If it's 5, 6, or 7, you do. For 8s, you split if the dealer is showing 8 or less. 9 or better, you don't. 9s pushes that up to 9. 9 or less, you do. 10 or better, you don't. 10s, you never split.
Unless you got a feeling.
And then you ignore the feeling, and you don't split. And then you make me stand behind you and watch you play blackjack, and I smack you upside the head, and you don't split. Aces, on the other hand,
always
you always
split your
always
aces.
split your aces, because you just might get 2 10s, and you have 2 blackjacks, and it's wonderful.
Man, life is good.
Now, like I said, that doesn't mean you don't hit. This just determines whether or not you're going to split. If you're dealt 2s, you have a total of 4. But if the dealer is showing an 8, you don't split them. You just play at that point. You've got 4 or less, you have to hit. So you take a hit, and then you just follow the previous chart on what you do. So, when do you double down? Again, that depends upon if you have a hard hand or a soft hand.
It does.
For a hard hand, if you have an 8, and the dealer is showing a 2 or a 7, 8, 9, 10, or ace, you don't double down, because it's too risky. Your hand is so weak at having only an 8 that you getting only one card, the dealer is either also so weak that they're probably going to make it to 17.
They have to, exactly.
Right, or
exactly.
they are so strong that they're going to bust. Is the reasoning behind that? For a 9, it's 6 or less, so the 2 goes away. If it's 6 or less and you have a 9, double down. If it's 7 or better, play on as if you were just playing a regular hand. For a 10, you always double down unless the dealer is also showing a 10.
Yes.
Okay.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless the dealer is also showing a 10, you double down. Because if the dealer is showing an ace, we know they don't have blackjack.
Oh, wait, on a 10?
On a 10. If the dealer is showing a 10...
Yes.
Then
you always double down.
You always double down if
as long as
you don't double down. As long as they're not showing a 10, you always double down.
Yes, I do.
Because if they have an ace, you double down. Because the very first thing they did when they had an ace is they checked to see, do I have blackjack? No, I don't have blackjack. So we're playing. So you know they don't have a 10 underneath there. So yeah. Now if you have an 11, always double down.
Always.
Just always, always, always. You were so close to getting 21. And there are so many cards that with an 11 get you above the 17 cutoff for the dealer that it makes sense to double down. You're only going to get one card, but it's going to improve your hand.
And when you pull that 3,
you hate that.
You hate everybody
there. Now for soft hands, it's a little bit different, and this is where you can deal with this for a little bit. So if you have a 13, so you've got a 3 and an ace. Okay. So this is where all of the other possibilities, because with a 2, and you got a 2 and an ace. 2 and an ace is 13.
So you're soft 13.
So you got a soft 13. So 13, 14, 15, and 16 are all played the same way. Dealer, 3 or less, 7 or better, don't do it. 4, 5, or 6, do it. Okay. For 17 and 18, it's the 3s join the party. 2 or 7 or better, don't do it. 3 to 6, do it. For 19, 3 and 4 say, yeah, that was a lovely party, we don't like it anymore. 2, 3, or 4, 7 through ace, don't do it. 8, 5 or 6, do it. And if you have a soft 20, which is an ace and a 9, always double down. Is what the numbers are. Now, since you always double down on 11, there's a reasonable chance you'll draw a 10, make 21, blah, blah, blah. So, again, this doesn't mean you don't hit, just if you double down. Because if you don't double down, you need to play as if you were playing an actual hand. So you have an 8 facing a 2, you still hit. Hoping the dealer to bust isn't worth it. So, why do you double down if the dealer is showing a 5 or 6?
I'm sure there's a mathematical reason.
Well, because the dealer is going to need to draw a card.
Yes.
We know that. Because if it's an ace, it's a soft 17 and the dealer has to hit. So no matter what, the dealer has to hit. And if the dealer has to start hitting, there's a significant chance that the dealer is going to bust. Because their hand is so strong.
Yeah, 5 or 6, yes.
Right, 5 or 6, there's a likelihood that their hand is so strong that they're going to have to draw a card and go over the line. Excuse me. So, now for the insurance. So that's why we're dealing with that. Should you take it? For a single deck shoe, assuming you're not counting cards, this is the big thing, you're not counting cards, no, don't take it. There are only 16 cards valued at 10 in a standard deck. Thus, it is more likely that the whole card of the dealer is not a 10 than it is a 10.
Yes.
And if it's the other way around, and that's the thing, is that the insurance is only offered if the dealer is showing an ace. If the dealer is showing a 10, they're going to check and immediately play blackjack, but you don't get the offer of insurance on that bet.
Only with the ace.
Only with the ace are you offered insurance. But the point is, there's only 6 in a single deck shoe. There's only 16 cards in there. There are so many more cards that are the whole card is likely to be that it's unlikely. I shouldn't say very. It's unlikely that the dealer has blackjack.
I feel like I read somewhere, and I was trying to find it, that insurance has like an 11.7% house edge. It's just a terrible,
it's a horrible bet. Yes,
it's an awful bet. And I see
You should be getting 9-1 off that.
Yeah.
And you're not.
And you don't. And I do see people play it, and usually, like, everyone else at the table is like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah.
All right. I've never seen insurance hit. And
I have seen it hit, but it's so rare.
I have been gambling for 15, almost 16 years since I was legally allowed to gamble. So now you know how old I am. And
I'm 10 years older.
I have never, ever seen insurance hit.
Yeah.
It's an awful bet. You're going to you're not
it's
going
it's a
to.
1 in 9 chance.
Yeah.
Essentially, that the dealer has blackjack.
The
and
stupid side bets they give you on some of the tables are in some cases better than insurance, just based on in some cases, not all.
The casinos these days have gotten into a lot of we're trying to get people to play the blackjack tables and get into the casino, and thus you can have a bet of I'm gonna get an 8 using a 5 and a 3, or you know if I'm gonna draw a bunch of cards and they're all gonna be clubs, and if I draw 5 cards and they're all clubs, then I get an extra thing out of that. And it's like yeah.
There was one at the El Cortez on the double attack, which is a variant of blackjack, where it was like if it was a face card, queen thing, hearts thing, where you could win like 1,000 to 1, but a very specific set of circumstances had to happen. Like you had to have 2 queen of hearts, and the dealer has to have between 17 and 19. It could happen.
Yeah,
it's probably you're probably not getting fair odds on the 1,000 to 1, but you know. So anyway,
well, there was at least one nice thing that was vaguely. I think this. Oh God, when was this? It was Jason and I. Jason and I went to Vegas. Jason's an old friend of ours who has dropped off the face of the earth. Jason, if you ever see this, let us know you're still alive. Come back to the life and let us know that you're still alive. But we had gone to Vegas, and I think we were gambling at Harrah's. And Harrah's was doing a promotion. They were just essentially a raffle for a car, something like that. And if you got blackjack, and I think it was diamonds, if you got a blackjack off diamonds, they gave you an entry. And that's it. And that was all they really. You needed to fill it out and stick it in the big drum sort of thing. And for that, I don't really mind about that. It's all of these weird things that they're doing, and gambling is just so complicated these days. So
okay,
all right. So now, suppose you have blackjack, and the dealer shows an ace. Should you get insurance?
No.
Again, because you can only bet. But the point is, you can only bet half your bet on the insurance bet, and thus you're only going to get 2 to 1 odds off of that. But you're only getting, but you're getting 3 to 2 odds off your blackjack.
Yeah.
So, which means because you get half your bet in insurance and you lose, you've just canceled any bonus that you would have gotten for your blackjack.
Exactly. And if the dealer's showing blackjack, you push.
Yeah.
So you haven't lost any money.
Yeah.
You've just you actually technically won because you get to play another hand.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. I'm like, I pushed. I got to play another hand.
We push. And the point, and even then, if you take the insurance and it happens, you bet half your little thing. There's no point.
There's no point.
There's no point in insurance. So now these tables are assuming a fresh deck. The tables that I gave you are assuming a fresh deck. Again, as the deck starts to get played, these numbers change. Because again, it's quite conceivable. It's exceedingly rare. I don't think it's ever happened in the lifetime of the universe. But it's possible that for the first few hands of play, nothing but number cards have come out. So there's nothing but 10s and aces that's left in that deck. Well, the odds of you getting blackjack now in a deck that's filled with 10s and aces is a lot different than if you're starting with a fresh deck.
Exactly.
And thus the rules start to change. That's why people count cards. It's why people count cards, is because as the cards get played, the odds change. And if you know what the odds are, you can adjust your bets accordingly in order to get more money out of it. So as the guide that I've counted out there, it's still pretty strong. But, the point is like, okay, well, I stand on, if it's 4 or less, I do it, and it's 5 or 6, the thing, that might shift a card or 2.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And so that's why it's kind of important. But, like I said, there's nothing stopping you from taking your betting guide into the casino. If you like these charts, and there's any number of charts that you can find online, print it out, take it out into the casino. A lot of them, they say, and they're, you know, little cards that will fit in your wallet. You can put right down there on the table. They're not that big, to tell you what it is that you need to do. Having advice is not considered card counting.
No, it's not cheating either. It's
right.
You know.
And indeed, on top of that, if you really, really, really want to know, ask the dealer. If you don't know what you're supposed to do at any given point, ask the dealer. The dealers know the games. The dealers want you to play, and you will play if you win. The house has its advantage. Even in the house is always going to be making its money, so they don't mind giving you advice on how to play intelligently. So ask the dealer. The dealer will tell you what it is that you ought to do. And if you start getting into a good rapport with the dealer because the dealer's helping you win, then you're likely to tip the dealer, and the dealer gets out ahead on that. So the dealers love to talk to you and help you. So yeah. Now, for a typical deck shoe, the actions are the same. And okay, so that said, for a 6-deck shoe, for a typical 6-deck shoe, the actions for a hand, for a hard hand, are absolutely the same, except for a 16 facing a 10 or an ace. With a single deck shoe, you stand. For a 6-deck shoe, you hit.
Interesting.
Yeah. So for there are too many good cards, and remember what I talked about. So if the first card is an ace, for a single deck shoe, the odds of you getting a second ace drop dramatically. You started at 7, and now it drops down to just under 5. But if you have a 6-deck shoe, you have so many. So yeah, that first one you had about a 7.8% chance. Of the second one just dropped tiny, like 1/10 of 1%. So that's why you have a lot of cards in the deck. For a hard 16 facing a 10 or an ace, you hit, because there are too many good cards in that deck. So the dealer to have something less than a 7 and thus bust. So there we go. So that's Blackjack. So that's a little bit for Blackjack.
I actually have some things about Blackjack.
So yeah,
okay. So
Dan's going to talk now.
So what you what Brian gave, what you gave was what they call basic strategy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now basic strategy is like you get cards and it's all color coded and there's a lot of information on it. Now, even though you say you can bring it into the casino.
Yeah. Not electronically. You can't.
No,
don't bring it up on your phone. It's got to be an actual piece of paper.
People get embarrassed about doing that. And there's about 250 combinations between of what you're looking at, and people want to kind of memorize things. So there's a website that I don't have the patience. I probably could. I don't have the patience to memorize basic strategy. And this is just what I want to throw out there. Yeah. There's actually a website that I read a lot of. It's called wizardovodds.com. Okay. And the guy who ran it, he's a blackjack player, I think is where he started. And he actually came up with the Wizard Simple Strategy. Okay, basically what he did is he took those however many rules that you were just going through and condensed them down to 21. Mm-hmm. A lot easier to memorize.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not the guy with the... Now, you please use the basic strategy. Overall, the basic strategy is more mathematically sound.
Yeah.
But
you can get the house edge down to about 1%
Exactly.
If you follow basic strategy.
Exactly. Trust you. That is going to be the better option. However, for people like me who just want to play, who just kind of want to memorize 21 rules, 21 for 21 is awesome. This is a strategy I use, and I have won a shit ton of money on this, and I have lost a shit ton of money. So over time, if you're just
that's why craps is a better game, because craps is very mechanical. There's only a couple of the rules that you need to memorize. You just need more money to start off with.
Yeah. Over time, so basically, he figured it out over the length of play. That this actually does increase the house edge, but only by about 0.1%, which over 12 hours is probably the cost of 1 or 2 hands. If you play it right.
And that's because even with craps, there are certain things. Yes. It's like you have to play it right, because you can play craps against the shooter. It increases your odds. Playing against the shooter is indeed the better bet, but it's so small that you're really not going to see it unless you're at that table for a long time. And it's going to be the same way with the blackjack. Is that...
Yeah. So basically, and again, can't tell you how many times where the waitresses come by and I've asked for a drink, and I have hit when I should have stood or something, just because you mess up. So real quick, 21 hands.
Because you're drunk.
Because you're drunk. This strategy breaks the dealer's up card into 2 to 6 or 7 ace.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Going down real quick. If you've got a hard, no ace, 4 to 8, no matter what, you hit.
Yeah.
Okay. If you've got a 9, and this gets compensated, if you've got a 9, if it's a 2 to 6, you always double. Mm-hmm. And if the dealer's showing 7 or higher, you stay.
Right.
Or you hit, I'm sorry, because you got a 9. You hit. 10 or 11, you should always double as long as you have more than the dealer.
Okay.
Which is why when you said the dealer has 10 and you have 10, you shouldn't do it, because you're even at that point. 11, you're always going to have more than the dealer. Always, unless the dealer has the ace.
Right.
So then you go. So now you're 12 to 16. Stand if the dealer has the lower, because again, they're going to hit with the more 10s. If they've got the higher, you hit. And then 17 to 21, you stay. So what the basic strategy does is it gives you a slightly higher, because you were on 4 to 7 versus 4 to 8.
The cards that are in the middle, the basic strategy deals with, okay, if the dealer is weak, you deal with that. If the dealer is strong, you try to improve your hand. But if the dealer's in the middle, then you deal with that. And so your strategy is like, no, here's a hard line. 6 and 7. Anything below, you do one thing. Anything above, you do the other.
And the way that they compensate for that is this doubling on the 9 and things like that. So then we get to the soft hands, and this is where, again, there's some compensation going on. So if you've got a soft 13 to 15, you hit. Always. Because you can only better your hand, or you can get even. Soft 16, and this is where I can't always remember this. Soft 16 to 18, if the dealer is showing a 2 to 6, you double.
Because they're soft,
Because they're soft. So you double if you get the one card and you got a 10. Now the dealer's going to have to, ostensibly going to have to hit.
Right.
But if the dealer's showing a 7 to ace, you hit. You always hit up to... You always do something up to 18 to get yourself a card. If the dealer is showing a 2 to 6 on that soft 16 to 17, you double. And then 19 to 21, why would you hit? You've got 19 to 21, stay. The splitting rules are basically the same. 2s, 3s, 6s, 7s, 9s. If it's less than 7, you split. If it's more than 7, you don't. Always split your aces and 8s, because 2 8s is 16, and 16 is terrible.
Yep.
Never split your 4s, never split your 5s, never split your 10s. That's kind of...
Never split your 10s.
Never split your 10s.
He has his own rules that he claims that he wants to follow, and they're telling him, don't split your 10s.
So, and then it's something else that I find interesting. We're talking about bad strategy. So everybody has a strategy. You don't have to follow basic strategy. Brian's strategy is the best. Follow that strategy.
Yeah. If you're not counting cards.
I'm the guy who's like, I just want to go and have a beer, blah. And so I just memorize my little thing. And, like I said, it gives the house a little bit of an edge. But there are people who play shitty strategies.
Oh, yes.
The one I told you about earlier, they never bust, which is, I'd rather the dealer beat me than I beat myself. That's stupid. And Brian told you why.
Yeah.
Again, this gentleman has figured out the odds. That actually gives you an additional house edge of 4%.
Yeah.
So why would you do that?
Yeah.
I did this when I was younger. The dealer hits up to 17. I'm going to hit up to 17.
Playing as if you were the dealer.
Don't do that.
Play as if you were the dealer. Yeah, that's not a strategy.
Don't do that at all. It basically destroys your odds. It gives the casino almost 5.5% higher. And it's true. Yeah. Try it sometime. Take $100 and say, I don't believe that. You will lose. I have done this. I was actually when it was still Buffalo Bills, and I was like, I'm gonna try it, and I lost everything quickly. Do not do that. And then the final one, which is interesting, because we keep talking about, there's so many 10s in the deck, and the dealer has this, and so on and so forth. There's a strategy, and again, I like these. It's on this website. Go read it if you want. It's called assuming the dealer has a 10.
Okay.
So the dealer's showing a 4, and you think, he's got a 14, and you play accordingly. Mm-hmm. Don't play accordingly.
Yeah.
Play as if the dealer has a 4, based on the basic strategy, or the simple strategies I have. And what if you don't do it, if you assume the dealer has a 4 and play accordingly, it actually adds 10%. They figured it out. 10% to the house edge. You will lose your money so fast, it's ridiculous. Yeah. I love Blackjack. That's what I play. Yeah. And so...
Craps is my game. Blackjack is Dan's game.
So it's quick. It's easy. I can sit down. It's 2 cards. There's a finite number of rules. I can have a drink.
Yeah.
Craps, if I had more money, I think I'd really like craps. But I just... Gambling for me isn't I want to win money. It's just more hanging out with all you guys and sitting down and having a beer kind of
Yeah.
thing. So, all right, that's all. I had that.
There we go. So there we go. This is the latest edition of Sweatin' the Small Stuff. He said, trying to get back to his notes. I think I even have one for poker set up. Let me open up my poker notes and let me see. Did I actually...
Did you start it?
I have started my poker notes.
All
I
right.
haven't actually written the full set of poker notes because poker is another one of those... All the cards, depending upon what cards have been played, will determine. Because you watch the little thing, and they where they're doing the Texas Hold'em tournaments.
Yeah, and they'll say, like,
and they can
chance
show
to
the
win.
chance to win is
Yeah.
67% versus 33%, because it really does depend upon what the other people have and what's been played and what's in the turn. And besides, there are so many variations of poker that it's really kind of difficult. So I can't guarantee that we are actually going to talk about poker, but I will see and try. And I don't know if we're going to be able to get it up by the time Vegas comes around.
That's fine.
But there may at some point in the future be a part 3 to this, Gambling on Probability, where we'll talk about poker and maybe possibly roulette in there as well. But other than that, hopefully today, I'm going to be talking to my JPL buddy. Her name is Dr. Ashley Stroop. She works for JPL. She is on the Mars rover projects.
Wow.
She was the first woman to lay tracks on Mars.
Oh.
So, because they program, they do up the commands, they write up the commands on the computer, they send it to the rover on Mars to tell it, go in that direction and all that sort of stuff. And so she was the first one to get the first woman to program and actually program and tell the rover, go over there. Up to then, it had always been. We went to college together at Harvey Mudd.
Nice.
She then went off to, I think it was Carnegie Mellon, to get a degree in robotics. And then she got a job at JPL, and she's wonderful.
We need
and
more
so,
women engineers and
all
more women
this sort of stuff.
scientists.
So she's going to be talking to me about Mars. We're going to be talking about wheels.
Wheels on Mars.
Wheels on Mars, and why the wheels on the rovers are the way they are, and with made of the thing. Because she saw The Martian, and she looked at it and she said, "Rubber wheels on Mars." Rubber wheels on Mars. Okay.
This is why you can't watch movies with Brian. This is why, like, every time I go see a movie with Brian, he's like, it was good, but rubber wheels on Mars.
Wheels on Mars. Oh, well, because when you think about it, Mars has almost no atmosphere, and so it's very, very cold. I mean, it gets kind of thing. So if you put rubber, it's going to immediately freeze and crack and shatter. And not to mention the fact you're going to put air in this thing. Okay, I mean, you could probably do a solid wheel, but now this thing weighs, a solid rubber wheel weighs how much?
Yeah.
And the first one, I mean, this, the Sojourner was, about this big. The little rover was about one, and then the Opportunity. I think Sojourner was about the size of a tiny little coffee table, sort of thing. And then Opportunity and Spirit were more the size of like the table
like
that we're sitting on, the thing. And the latest one that they sent out there is about the size of an SUV, sort of thing.
Oh,
but
cool.
there was ish. That's the thing. But the point is, every little thing that you do is weight, and weight is fuel, and fuel makes it difficult to get the rocket up and thing, because fuel is weight, which means you need to add more fuel to get the fuel up, which is more. So eventually there's the point where we have enough fuel to get everything up there, but the more stuff you try and get into space, the more it is. So you need to make these wheels very, very light, and they need to be made of a material that hopefully will be durable enough. But Mars hates humans. It really, really does.
We're going to conquer it. You know why? I was going to say because we're Americans, but we're humans, and humans do shit. We're going to conquer it.
So we're going to
This
talk
is what
about
humans do.
So we're going to talk about the wheels and why the wheels are the way they are, why they're made of the composites that they are, the trouble that Mars does to instruments and stuff like that. So hopefully we're going to be dealing with today. We've been trying to get this together for a couple weeks, but she said, "Oh, my notes aren't ready, and I need to get it down," because I told her, notes. Write up your notes. Notes are a wonderful thing to have, because that way you know what it is you're talking about. So hopefully that'll also be done
cool
today. So if I see me again today, hopefully it'll be the same day, and my voice will keep out. But other than that, Musings of a Geek Podcast Network. There are an infinite number of Musings of a Geek podcasts.
I'm so behind on posting shows right now. I know we've got a bunch.
Yeah.
because it was closed.
Did you get my audio up?
I did.
You did?
I put
I
your
didn't
audio
see it.
up.
Okay, I just didn't see it. Oh well. So yes, infinite number of podcasts that we've got out here for Musings of a Geek as my computer decides that it doesn't really want to. How did this? Have you done a pilots yet? Did you do your
Not
pilots?
recently. No.
So you still haven't done that.
October is, we should have done a pilot because October is this weird month where every year that we've been doing the podcast, we don't record in October because of hashtag reasons. Like it's not like we've gone on vacation.
Be very glad that he didn't do this.
Yeah, Rihanna,
that's stupid.
Rihanna and I have gone on vacation every October, basically.
Yeah,
like we've done Europe, and we've done October, November, and Ohio. And Des has got something, and Will was sick, and then he took his wife out on a date. How dare he? And so it was like we did episode 100. We figured it out. We recorded, and then it took 8 weeks for us, the three of us, to be together to record again.
Oh, wow.
It took 8 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah. Or basically 7 or 8 weeks. So.
Yeah. And it takes me about a week to edit the video together. So, anyway, so there's Musings of a Geek and History of Bad Ideas, Pittsburgh Nerd Pod, Lucky 10,000, Red Horse Radio. Are these still?
All of them.
All of them are good.
All
Okay, yes. Because I know that you said that some of them have kind of.
All of those are still good.
Sons of the Renaissance, me, Sweatin the Small Stuff, and Who the What Now. And, of course, you've got 365 Flicks, Arrow the Podcast,
Arrow
Comic
Time.
Roast presents The Movie Roast, Pilots Broadcast, which hopefully someday we'll do another one. Record a show.
You know what?
Post it on the net.
Des and Will might get together to do a new Arkham Social Hour.
Oh,
which they haven't.
wow.
There hasn't been one of those in almost over a year.
Wow.
Over a year.
Okay.
Over a year.
So it's Comic Roast Podcast, Graphic Novice, Green Up Podcast, My Comic Shop, History.
That's a little mini. So there's like 10 episodes of that. It tells a story. It's actually really good.
40 going on 14. Bearded Ones, Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks. They're still recording. Yeah. Rather Be Dead, Salty Language, Vice Podcast, The Ward Pod, and then, of course, all the
old stuff.
Things like Arkham Social Hour, which
Yeah.
may actually happen, and the Best of the Worst movie podcast. So that's the thing. You've been playing with those goddamn keys.
That's what I do.
Stop playing with the goddamn keys.
My door's locked because of the kid.
Are you going inside?
No.
Then why are you playing with the keys?
Play with things. Leave me alone.
Anyway, Sweatin the Small Stuff. Thank you for listening, and this is your host Brian Evans with Dan Zisco.
What's up?
And remember, the devil, the devil is in the details.
Wow.